So in this note sheet, we're still looking at slope and y-intercept, but this time we're looking at tables and equations. So our essential questions are really similar. How can I find the slope and y-intercept of a function from a table? How can I identify an equation from a table? How can I identify a table from an equation? So we start off with the same question, what is slope? So if you remember from graphs, slope told us how steep the line was. It told us if it was really steep like this or if it was kind of flat. That steepness is related to the rate of change, or how quickly it's changing from one point to the next. So it's represented by the letter m. So again, if you remember our slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. Our slope is that guy right there, okay, that coefficient of x. So on a graph, we counted how many spaces up, how many spaces over. But with a table, we have to do something a little bit different. Slope is found by finding the change in y over the change in x. So what we're going to end up doing is subtracting y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. I know that looks a little confusing, a little complicated, but it's not that bad, I promise. So here's how we start. We start by picking 2 points from the table. This could be any 2 points you like. We're going to first subtract the y values. That number is going to go at the top of our fraction. And then we're going to subtract the x values. That number is going to go at the bottom of our fraction. Our fourth step, we're going to simplify it if we need to. So let's look at our first table. Excuse me. So you can pick whatever 2 points that you want. It really doesn't matter. Let's say we pick the first two. So here's our first point, and here's our second point. You could have said this is first, this is second. It really does not matter. So what we're going to do first is we're going to subtract the y values. Well, that would be 6 minus 2. And that equals 4. Now we're going to subtract our x values. If we started with 6 and went down, then we need to start with negative 2. Negative 2 minus negative 1. And I'm putting that negative 1 inside of parentheses because it's important that we realize that we're subtracting a negative. So when I go to type this into my calculator, 2 negative, and I'll zoom out so you can see what I just did. 2 negative minus 1 negative equals. That's negative 1. So I know sometimes people think that that's going to be like negative 3 or something like that, but it's not. So that's going to be negative 1. This minus negative, you can really kind of count it as a plus or a positive. So now, the subtraction from our y values goes on the top of our fraction. So we got 4. The subtraction from our x values goes on the bottom. We got negative 1. Now we just need to ask ourselves if we can simplify this. And we can. So 4 over negative 1, well, we can divide that. 4 divided by negative 1, well, that ends up equaling negative 4. And so that's our slope. That's it. Some of you might be like, it's that easy? Yes, it's that easy. So let's look at the other table. Again, you can pick whatever points you want. Let's say we pick these two right in the middle. Point 1, point 2. We're going to start with our y values. 1 minus 3. That's negative 2. Our x values. 5 minus 8. And that's negative 3. Negative 2 over negative 3 would be the slope of that table, that fraction. But we have to ask ourselves, can I simplify this? We can't simplify the 2 or the 3 to make them any smaller, but a negative divided by a negative ends up being a positive answer. So we just got to make sure that we understand that when we talk about slope. So this would actually be a positive slope of 2 over 3. And so that's how you find the slope from a table. Pick 2 points, subtract the values, write the fraction. Some of you might be asking, well, couldn't I have done 3 minus 1? You could have. we could have done 3 minus 1, we just would have had to do 8 minus 5. As long as you start with the first x or y value and follow it to the next one, you'll be fine. So you could do 5 minus 8 or 8 minus 5. You could do 1 minus 3 or 3 minus 1. You just have to go in the same direction for both of them. Excuse me. So let's go on to something a little bit easier, and that's finding the y-intercept from a table. So the y-intercept is that b part of our equation. So again, when we look at slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, we're focusing right there. That's our y-intercept. So what we do is we look in that table and we find when the y value, or excuse me, we find the y value when x is 0. That's what we're focusing on. So let's look at one example. We find the y value when x is 0. So I'm going to look for x, find 0. Oh, y is negative 2. So the y-intercept of that table is negative 2. Again, you might be thinking, wait, it's that easy? Yes, it's that easy. So let's look at the other table. Again, actually, you see if you can find it. If you picked 8, you are right on track. So you could write 8 or plus 8, whichever your preference is. And so that's how you find the y-intercept from a table. I've said it before, and you'll hear me say it again. The y-intercept is your best friend. It helps you to eliminate answer choices and makes your life a lot easier if you know how to find it. Okay, it's pretty easy to find, so we like to use it to help us. So that's what we're going to do on the back. On the back, we're going to be looking at how can we match equations to tables and tables to equations. There's 2 different methods that I'm going to show you. One is where we use slope and y-intercept. The other is where we use substitution. So what you can do is you can use this one or you can use this one. You can use a combination of both. It's really up to you. But I'm going to show you how you can use both ways. So let's look at this first one. We have y equals negative 3x plus 4, and we're trying to figure out which of these tables matches that. So let's start by using that slope and y-intercept. If I asked you what's the y-intercept of this equation, I hope that you could tell me that it's 4 or plus 4. So let's look at those tables. I see positive 4 here, which is good. I see positive 4 here, which is good. All right, that didn't help us. But maybe there would have been some other answer choices, and that would have helped. So now we have to go and we have to find the slope. If I look back at that equation, that slope is a coefficient of x. I'm looking for a slope of negative 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to find the slope of these tables and figure out which one has a slope of negative 3. So let's start. I'll pick the bottom 2 points here. My y values. I have 4 minus 13. For my x values, I have 0 minus 3. 4 minus 13 is negative 9. 0 minus 3 is negative 3. If I write that as a fraction, negative 9 over negative 3. I can simplify that. Since these are both negative, that's going to end up being a positive answer, and 9 divided by 3 is 3. So that's the slope for that table. But I'm looking for a slope of negative 3. That means that table can't be our answer. Let's try this other one. Let's pick the first 2 this time. Okay, my y values, I have 7 minus 4, and that equals 3. For my x values, I have negative 1 minus 0, and that equals negative 1. So that means my slope is 3 over negative 1, which equals negative 3. Oh, that's what I'm looking for. So this table is our answer. Now some of you might be able to do this subtraction in your head or in the calculator and just go straight to writing it as a fraction, which is totally fine. If you feel comfortable doing that, then by all means go ahead and do it. But if you need to write out the work, you can write out the work. No judgments. So maybe you're thinking in your head, ooh, I don't like that. That's okay. There's another way that you can do this. You can use method 2. You can use substitution. When we use substitution, what that means is we're going to plug in numbers for x from the table and see if when we do the math, if we get the right answer. So let's start. Y equals 1/3 times, well, my first x value is -3, and then -7. 1 divided by 3 times -3 is -1. -1 minus 7 is -8. Well, that's what I wanted. So we're good there. But we can't just stop, because they're going to try and trick you. So we need to check all the points in the table. We either need to check points until one of them is wrong, or both of them are right. So we've got to try the other one. So y equals 1 divided by 3 times 0 minus 7. 1 divided by 3 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 7 is -7. If I look, oh, this one says it's supposed to be +7. That's not right. Because that's not right, this table is not our answer. So again, we figured out this table's not it because it had a point that didn't work. So let's try our other table. This idea is the same. We're going to use substitution. 1 divided by 3 times 6 minus 7. 1 divided by 3 is 2. 2 minus 7 is -5. Oh, that's what I wanted. Let's try the other point. 1 divided by 3 times -9 minus 7. 1 divided by 3 times -9 is -3. -3 minus 7 is -10. Oh, that's what I wanted. So since both those points work and they're correct, we know that this is the table that matches our equation. So maybe some of you like substitution better. Maybe some of you understood that because this has a y-intercept of -7, you already knew that this table wasn't going to work without even plugging anything in. And that's totally fine. That just means that you're combining the two strategies that I taught you, and that's totally okay. I want you to do whatever you feel the most comfortable with. So let's look at our other example. So with these two on the bottom, we're doing the same kind of thing. Except now I've given you a table and I'm asking you to find the matching equation. Again, you can use slope and y-intercept for this, or you can use substitution. So method 1 is using slope and y-intercept, so let's do that. Ask yourself, what's the y-intercept of this table? Well, if I look for when x is 0, oh, it's -1. Let's look at our answer options. I see +1, -1, +1, -1. I know I'm looking for -1 or -1, so option A can eliminate, option C can be eliminated. Just like that, nice and quick. And so now what I need to figure out is what's my slope. So let's pick 2 points. Why not pick the 2 on the bottom here? So I start with my y values, 5 minus 7. That equals -2. My x values, 3 minus 4. That equals -1, which means my slope is going to be -2/1. We talked a little bit about this before, but since these are both negative, negative divided by a negative means we're going to have a positive slope. 2 divided by 1 is 2. So if I go back and I look at the equations that are left, this one has a slope of 1/2, this one has a slope of 2. That means my answer choice is D. If you get to this point where you found the y-intercept and then you get stuck, you can always use substitution, which is what I'm going to show you next. So if this part is still making you a little bit confused, you always have substitution that you can fall back on. So let's look at how we could use substitution here. When you're doing substitution and you've got 4 equations, you just need to pick one point. So let's pick the 2, because 2 is a really easy number. What we're going to do is we're going to plug in 2 for x into each of these. And what we need to find out is which of them gets us the answer of 6. So let's start. Negative 2 times 2 plus 2. That's a lot of 2's. Negative 2 times 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 plus 2, negative 2. Does that match 6? Nope. So let's move on to the next one. Y equals 1/2 times 2 minus 2. 1/2 times 2 is 1. 1 minus 2 is negative 1. Does that equal 6? No. Alright, so far 2 down, 2 to go. So y equals 4 times 2 minus 2. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 minus 2 is 6. Oh, well that one's okay. But we can't just stop. They're always going to try and trick you. So let's try out option D and see what happens. 2 times 2 plus 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus 2 is 6. Oh look, that one worked again too. So here we have a situation where we have 2 of them that worked. But there can only be one right answer. So maybe at this point you used your y-intercept skills to figure out that the y-intercept was going to be plus 2. Or you could pick another point. So let's pick 4 and 10. We're going to plug in 4 and see which one gives us an answer of 10. So this one is going to be y equals 4 times 4 now, and then minus 2. 4 times 4 equals 16. 16 minus 2 is 14. Oh, wait a second. We're not looking for 14, we're looking for 10. So C is not our answer. That would mean that D is correct. And if you want to be extra safe, we can check. 2 times x, or 2 times 4, plus 2. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 plus 2 is 10, which is what we wanted. So that's how you can use substitution. Again, with both of these examples, you could have used a combination of both. You could have used y-intercept first, gotten rid of answer choices, and then used substitution for what ones you had left. It doesn't matter to me which one you like to use. As long as you feel comfortable with it and you like it, then that's all that matters to me. If you're struggling with this, please, please, please come and see me. It's going to be really useful for you to know how to do this, and it's an expected standard.